Hey everyone, welcome to the Glad Trad podcast. This is Rudy.
And I'm Jordan.
Jordy, how you doing today, bro?
Dude, I'm doing great. It is 21 days out from the wedding, but who's keeping track?
I
I
know I
feel
am.
Dude, I'm so excited to see you. And I'm sure our listeners are like, oh my gosh, just get married already. So you can shut up about how happy you are to be getting married.
You know what? People are just jealous, bro.
Oh no, I think, well, I mean,
It's
yeah.
it's all the guys that are too afraid to ask that girl out.
Can I tell you a story? Can I tell you a
Of
story?
course.
Jen and I went swing dancing a week ago, and we're pretty good at swing dancing. That was fun. But what's really funny is that it was a young adult dance at our church, which I think is just Father Jackson's really genius way of trying to get more Catholic couples.
Yeah,
Smart.
it's a good idea.
And I've always, if I have one great critique of the Catholic Church, and I have many of them, as you know, but I think one of my biggest ones culturally is I think the church should really foster more dances and events and get people mingling like that. But anyway, it was funny because, there were like couples there and they were doing their thing, but then there was like single guys and single girls, and some of those guys need some game talk, Rudy. Like some of our boys are not doing a service to themselves. Like it's like a middle school dance, right?
Yeah.
Was all wrong.
Well, they're the guys that read St. John Vianney.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, St. John Vianney said this dancing is a sin.
Oh, that's right. That's he just because he couldn't shake a tail feather.
Nah, I mean,
Some dancing is sinful.
some dancing is for sure.
Some
If
dancing is
I
sinful.
remember my middle school dance, that was
Oh
very
yeah.
inappropriate for a
So,
middle school dance.
oof, dude.
I was not homeschooled. I was going to public school. So
Yeah, same, same.
if it was bad, I don't know how long that what years, it doesn't matter. So long ago,
Right.
more than 10 years ago. Imagine what it is now. Oh
Well,
wait, they don't even have dances because of
they don't have
COVID.
dances. No. So actually, it's better. Actually,
Maybe.
no. But here's the problem. So did I ever tell you what ruined my junior prom?
No.
I had a date for junior prom. Really nice girl, right? She was just like a neighbor girl. But the problem is like I didn't want to grind.
Wow.
And she did, right? And in hindsight, I suppose would have been a good time to kind of get on the same page, even with your dates and your dance partners, uber
Mhm.
important. But like, I was like, no, I don't want to grind, and like, I kind of like dug my heels in the mud, thank God. And like, she really took that personally. I think we reconciled later and we're friends, but uh, but contrast that, my senior year, I went to Sadie Hawkins dance with a girl, like a nice little Christian girl, and we were totally fine. We had a good time. So, like grinding's not really dancing; it's just dry humping. Let's call it what it is. But
Yeah, it's very inappropriate for sure.
yeah,
I don't see that there's anything wrong with going to a dance per se.
no, no,
I think people have like the misconception that maybe maybe it is grinding or something like that. But
yeah,
most of the time you go to a Catholic event, it's, there's space in between each other.
mm-hmm.
Maybe you touch each other's hands, but there's always space, it's
Well,
not
even
anything
even if you go to like
disrespectful.
look, I think that something we have to remember, especially with like John Vianney's comments on Saint John Vianney's comments on dancing and stuff, is that uh, there are some sins which are always true and always sinful no matter what time and space. There's also circumstantial sins, right? There's the nearest occasion of sin and these sorts of things. But
Right.
sometimes things that might be sins in one culture might not necessarily be in another culture. If it's scandalous in your culture to see a woman's shoulder blade, let's say, then immodest dressing might mean a whole different thing. But is it necessarily immodest? Like, suppose like the Jesuits get off the boat and they see all the Aztecs running around. Obviously Aztecs were the most naked of peoples, but they were still like, they're considerably more scantily clad than the Spanish are. It might not be necessarily as big an occasion of sin for those inside the culture. Like for us,
And
it's like,
then and then they looked up at the pyramid.
I know,
They're
right?
like, oh,
Oh, ooh.
whoa.
Well, think about this, right? It's like I think now, like if you see a girl in like a summer dress and like you can see her kneecaps, we go, okay, cool. Like we don't like I don't detect that as like there's more cuts and stuff that would make it more of a greater occasion of sin, let's say. Um,
I take an opposite approach to
you
that.
would, you
I think,
Puritan.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm much more of a Puritan when it
Yeah.
comes to that.
Right. Well,
It
that's because
actually
you have.
bothers me to
Well,
see
that's
that.
because you have a daughter in
Yeah.
the womb, right? So.
We went to the mall today to
Mhm.
return something to the this little baby clothing store that
Yeah.
Ashley went to. And I was looking through all the stuff, and Ashley said, "Oh, pick something out, pick something that you want to give to Sweet Pea." And I said, "Okay."
A
So
burqa.
I'm looking through it, and there's this really, really cute ladybug outfit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a nice little. It's like a set of pants and like a little baby thingy,
Yeah.
like a baby onesie thing. I don't know what they're
Okay.
called.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I picked that out, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to look at anything else?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." So I'm looking through the store, and I'm like looking at these dresses for like older kids, and I was like, "Man, this doesn't go past the kneecap. This is
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like this at all. This is Sweepy's not wearing anything shorter than this. This is crazy."
The here's a question though. Now here's a counter only
Okay.
because if you watch footage from say the 40s or the 50s, right? Little girls are wearing dresses that go above the knee a lot of times, but they don't look particularly immodest. It doesn't look like it's not like something nowadays, right? Where it's like, you would never send out your daughter in like spaghettis, like a tube top and like a short skirt, right? This isn't like the 90s
Right.
or the early 2000s, right? But like you see something like a party dress, right? That young girl wears like a party or something in that era. I'm like, I don't think that's, something in my brain's like, that's not registering to me the same sort of thing. And maybe the part of it, the
Right.
problems maybe is just that we've allowed for this great sexualization of children, right?
Yeah.
And so where in previous eras, like they're like look at India, like a very conservative culture where kids run around naked sometimes, and like that's not like a thing, it just is what it is. But here it's a whole different thing because we've had that injected so much. So I wonder
Right.
about that stuff every once in a while too.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, that is a good point when you look at when you look at it from the perspective of a different culture.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes things are they're not perceived to be as bad as you and I going and being displaced in that sort of culture for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Not making a justification for like every single piece of
No.
clothing that's out there. But what I was gonna say, even with dancing, right? Like I think that like I don't know, like I think some dancing, like there's like dirty dancing. We don't talk about that. You know what I mean? Like again, like just kind of like dry humping sort of stuff. But there is an interesting and like, but then there's very like modest dances which are so beautiful and elegant, like the waltz or something like that,
Hmm.
But the thing about the waltz is that you can still hold your partner close, You can
Oh
still make
yeah.
room for the whole zip, but like you're not like or like slow dancing or something. Like I don't think that all these things are just innately just horrible bad. Uh,
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that when it comes to dirty dancing, it sort of inevitably leads you into the near occasion of sin
mm,
because of the movements, because of the sort of what's the word, the sort of the nuance of it
mm,
is, or the overtone of it is sexual in nature, like you just mentioned.
right.
But a waltz is not that. It's more of a movement,
Yeah.
a connection of sorts.
Yeah. What do you think about tango?
I have never tangoed.
Right.
Ashley loves to dance, and I feel
Hmm.
bad because I'm terrible at dancing.
I don't.
We've taken classes before, but oh man, I suck at it. I'm gonna be
Mm.
honest with you. I feel like I look at the way that people move, and it like looks like they don't have bones in their bodies. Like
Yeah.
they're just
That's
like
like
so
ballet for me.
fluid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I get out there on the dance floor, like we've gone line dancing before, I just
Uh-huh.
feel like I'm a plank, dude. Like I
Uh-huh.
can't move my body. Like I feel like an old man.
I'm not I wouldn't say I'm a very good dancer at all. I love dancing though. Like it does not
It's
take me
fun.
whatever. Yeah.
It's
Um
fun.
Jen's a good dancer. Jen knows how to get down, but you get just a tequila shot in her, and then that's all you need. So, oh man, that's cool, dude. So today on the Glad Chat podcast, and actually this is really good because this is kind of related to, almost kind of related to dancing or anything recreational, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
recreation.
because I think that part of our life is our human experience, of course, is not just work but is play and proper
Mhm.
pleasures and that sort of thing. And this is a topic which I think is a little more nuanced in traditional Catholic circles, and I think it's almost
Yeah.
generational sometimes, because you and I have talked about video games as a form of noble recreation or good recreation, nothing that's objectively bad or sinful in its proper context. But dude, you find a lot of Catholics who think that that's just an untenable position, especially older ones. You notice this?
I have noticed it. Yeah. And again, like with a lot of things on our podcast, there's always a more nuanced sort of perspective to it for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I think maybe they're looking at it from the perspective of, and maybe this is what St. John Vianney was looking at dancing from the perspective of. It may be that people take it too far.
Mm.
When it comes to video games, for example, I've certainly seen it not just in my particular generation, but even the younger generation, like the Zoomers.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I see kids who are just like plugged into the computer all day long and they're just playing video games. It's like I know what that's like because I've done
Mm-hmm.
that before. I've literally played a video game all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that when I'm done with it, I can safely say that I didn't think of anything of value that whole
Right.
entire time. It was a
well,
distraction.
well, let's take a step back. Okay, so let's be fair to those who say that the virtue of liking or enjoying or being even an avid gamer, we have to maybe define those terms a little bit. In the most extreme position, you'll hear people say this, and they're coming at it in a culturally Catholic way. They say video gaming doesn't have any merit to it. It's pure distraction. It's
Mm.
mindless, you may say, and it therefore makes you derelict in your duties as a husband and as a father and as a man. So if you want to be a real man, you won't play video games or some sort of thing.
Well, I don't think that's the right premise to have because everybody needs to have some sort of recreation. Now, that recreation obviously has to be properly ordered, just with everything. You have to have the proper order for it. Otherwise, you can jump into something that could be a hobby or playing video games. It could be whatever, dancing or
Mm-hmm.
even going on social media, and it can take away enough time where you're derelict in your duties. But I wouldn't make such a broad stroke to say that everybody who happens to have a recreational activity like video games, for example,
Mm-hmm.
are wasting all of their time on that hobby. I You know what I think it is? I think that video games have evolved in such a way that it's not just to like um it's not like what it was in the beginning, which was like a collection of different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay, I'm going to play a couple levels. I'm going to advance to this particular um, level, and then I'm going to, I don't know, go and do something else, right? Nowadays, video games are a narrative experience where it does take maybe an hour or two to actually make any sort of progress in it. And so I think people look at it and they say, oh, this person is sitting here for like 2 hours a day or 2 hours or whatever. And it kind of does, if you don't have the perspective, it kind of does seem like a waste of time.
Yeah, yeah, that could be true. And so I think both of you and I, because both you and I think we played more video games back in the day than we do now, uh,
Yeah.
which is the normal progression of life. It's kind of funny. I will say that boredom and distraction are dangerous things for men. I know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I would much rather see that oriented in video gaming than in other sort of vices,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the game. And maybe that's like a step back. So I heard from my parish priest when we were in pre-Can in one of our last sessions. We were talking about children, discipline, and raising children, right, and be on the same page. And I mentioned how like I think it's totally fine to like if you have a little bit monitoring screen time, and if they want to like
Mm-hmm.
play this video game or they want to watch this movie, that's fine. Um, my priest is more on the side that video games are not particularly a rightly ordered form of leisure, and he was coming at it because of the design philosophy behind a lot of games, which I think is perfectly fair. Like, is it right to, you know, nowadays we talk about loot boxes, right? It's a huge debate right now. There's countries in Europe that have banned it, much to the great sadness of electronic arts. But the fact of the matter is that we've kind of have this like legalized gambling to children,
Right.
and if we play games that have that sort of design philosophy, is that actually good? If what's the point of there's a difference between like enjoying cards and then playing for the thrill of the gamble.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe is that sort of argument, which I think is a little bit more nuanced and is more to take pause about. I don't really play video games like that, which is what my counter was. And I think that video games, just as a medium, I find in a lot of cases combine the great elements in, say, filmmaking that can make for some of the best stories and characters and gripping plot lines, and satisfy that with gameplay to boot. That I think in a lot of ways can actually elevate our experience past movies. And maybe there's a danger there too. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say that's a terrible thing if you look at the way that movies are created nowadays. I mean, it's just not there's not really a lot of emphasis on storytelling. And I read something today on Twitter. I wish I could remember who posted it, but it wasn't Jeff Castman. It was somebody else. But they were
Mm-hmm.
saying how um, it was an article about Loki or something,
Oh
some
yeah,
character
yeah.
from
You seen the trailer for that? That's the latest Marvel movie that's
no,
gonna come out.
I haven't seen it, but it was sort of
Great looking
retconning
trailer.
his. It's a good one. Okay,
Sorry,
I'll
no.
look at it. Um, I'm not really interested in Marvel, but
Yeah.
they were saying in the article that I guess this character was being mind controlled and that he wasn't actually evil or something. And
Mm-hmm.
this person, whoever it was on Twitter, was saying, you know, it's such bad storytelling to not commit to somebody's storyline and just constantly
Mm.
retconning the lore in a universe. And I see this with Star Wars. Star Wars was really important to me
Yeah.
growing up because it was so cool. Like I just liked the aesthetics. I liked
Mm-hmm.
the story, and I liked the universe and how immersive everything was.
Yeah.
You know, I like to make props and stuff at that time. So I was watching these movies and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then some of the storylines in the universe got altered and they're just kind of like retconning all of the history of
Yeah.
the lore. And I was like, ah, this is kind of weird. Like it just doesn't make any sense. There's no continuity anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't blame people for wanting to experience that through a video game instead of a movie, because I mean, look at all the other movies too. Like we're just talking about sci-fi, but like
Yeah.
look at the kind of the quality of movie. It's just like woke
Mm-hmm.
drivel, you know. It's just I don't know. It's not interesting to me.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think that there's this fine line, and I don't think the virtue of a video game being a video game just means it's horrible. And I don't think the
Right.
virtue of us interacting with video games as we interact in a way that's different from a book or a movie is horrible too. Um,
Right.
you can tell a lot about a person via gameplay. You can tell a lot about story through gameplay. You can tell a lot about story through how you interact with characters intimately,
Mhm.
And there's a lot of garbage movies out there. And we've known this. And by the way, there's a lot of garbage video games. So I think it's fair to acknowledge, like,
Yeah.
there are such things as mindless shooters, and there's gratuity of sex and language and violence for sure. I personally have never really touched any of the Grand Theft Auto games. You
Me
know,
neither.
even though the stories seem interesting, but I just don't. I just know that there are elements in the games that I just don't want to support. The games that I tend to play are grand strategy games or like deep story lore games. So, for instance, I think that Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the best westerns ever created. Not just one of the best western video games, but I think just in terms of story content to character immersion, I think it's one of the best westerns.
Mhm.
And same with the first Red Dead Redemption, and I'll take that to my dying day. I would love to adapt that into a movie, or I'd love to read a book like that.
I love westerns. They're so cool.
Well, westerns. What's funny about westerns, right? Is, and I think that why they're gone nowadays is because westerns are the quintessential heart of America.
Yeah.
Like, you have oftentimes westerns are actually superhero films now. Now thinking about it in a way, because it's like you have good and evil, and the good guy, there's always some flaw, some character flaw that
Mhm.
that he needs to overcome in order to beat the bad guys in the end. I think about True Grit. I think True Grit is like such a beautiful, or Magnificent Seven, right, based off Seven Samurai. Red Dead Redemption, the story is that you were an outlaw who left the life. So talk about redemption and trying to find salvation, and you have these elements that are trying to suck you back in. So I think the Western represents kind of, in a way, a very Catholic approach to the world. This ability of, you have flawed beings that can be given the grace to persevere in the right sorts of paths, and you have bad guys and you have good guys and angels and saints and sinners, and it's dirty towns and nothing's perfect, but things can be good.
Right.
I mean, and so, but of course, in America nowadays, right? Like, we don't like moral, even though we make our Marvel movies. We started out doing moral plays, really. Now we're trying to get more nuanced and cool, and the villain has a is not so evil after all, and all that kind of crap. We've forgotten the good and evil exist, so it makes sense that that's gone out of our movies. Like, look at Star Wars again, right? Rey walks the light side and the dark side of the Force, and it's really all based about how her subjective feelings about whatever she wants, you know?
Right.
Like, oh, you're a Palpatine. Oh, she kills freaking Kylo Ren anyway, and then revives him because, you know, she uses the dark side to blow up was it the Millennium Falcon that she blew up and thought that she killed Chewbacca?
You know what? I haven't seen the last one.
So it's funny. I haven't seen the last one either, but I've seen enough review footage of the last one to where I've seen the last one.
I got so black pilled after that.
Right.
Watching the second one, I was like, wow, this movie didn't answer anything at all.
Right.
And I can't fathom sitting through another 3-hour movie and then feeling the same way.
Right.
After, I just can't do it anymore.
But
that was the last time.
Therein lies a huge question, though. So why do we watch films? Because they're stories of the human heart, you know?
Right.
I mean, and there's a way that we can connect somehow, magically, really coolly, to on-screen characters and on-screen worlds in a different way, not a better way, not a worse way, but in a different way than we can do a book sometimes. The analogy I often use for people is this. In a book, you can take 3 pages to describe an old man getting up, lighting his pipe, coming down the stairs, and sitting and looking at the rain outside. And it's beautiful, it's descriptive, and you're into the world in a different way. That same idea is conveyed in a movie in a minute. So the time extrapolation is different, but maybe you've seen details that weren't in the book that now you can literally see on the screen or something. And so I wonder if it's like, if the virtue of that connectiveness with video games is why sometimes people don't see it as its own kind of medium amongst many other sorts of mediums. Because the same people who criticize, like, oh, well, you know, video games don't make, like, yeah, they can be very distracting, you know, but I think there's just like negligence of what connected story looks like in video gaming as opposed to other mediums, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely one aspect of it. The other aspect that I really enjoy about video games is the connectiveness that you can have, and you kind of mentioned this earlier. The connectiveness that you can experience playing something with a friend. I mean, for you and I, since you're not in the same city anymore, you know, how are we? How do we have that? How do we maintain that camaraderie that we used to have? Right. I mean, we do it here, we do it in the podcast, but also we get an opportunity to just hang out and do something together inside of a video game. That's why we play Rocket League all the time, right? I mean, it's really cool. And I've met a lot of people, actually. I've talked about this in other podcasts that I've connected with over a video game. And these were conversations that I had with people that you typically don't even have in a normal day-to-day world. And I think it's the medium that is allowing these people to open up to really a deeper part of themselves, because I know that I wouldn't have had the sorts of conversations I had with my 2 buddies that I met in Washington, or that I met in a video game, who live in Washington, right? If I had met them out on the street. We got together so often and hung out together so often that we just inevitably had that opportunity to delve deeper into our life and what was going on in it, right, and our beliefs, and, you know, where all of those things intersected where it was a video game. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm reminded of funny enough, you know, I'm just reminded of the sort of connection that I've had throughout the years because of gaming, you know. And, you know, I'm not, you know, mine are I think a little less robust than yours, because usually I only play with people that I know. But I mean, I have a really good buddy of mine. He's in South Carolina currently, but when he was in Elizabeth still, we used to wake up in the morning and roll out of, you know, each other's respective beds, and we play Sword of the Stars, just talk about stuff. And so Aristotle talks about how friendship, to be good friendship, has to be built around the transcendent third. We talked about that in our episode on Catholic camaraderie. Right. And the thing about the transcendent third is that oftentimes it has to be oriented towards the good, the true, and the beautiful. So I think the video games can share certainly in those elements with, and same as other mediums can. Are there better things to build friendships around? Well, sure, of course. I mean, us doing this podcast is probably a good thing. Building the friendship around the faith is most important sort of thing.
For sure.
But the virtue of something being a video game doesn't mean that that's devoid. I mean, tell the good people what the name of our tribe is in Rocket League, Rudy.
Our clan on Rocket League is called Vatican II is a mistake. And so a lot of the game modes that we play in, if you have 3 people together and you happen to win that match, at the end there's a giant keyframe image that says Vatican II is a mistake. So in a way, we're evangelizing.
Oh my gosh, we're such religious grifters for Jesus.
How funny would it be? Oh, yeah, I should describe what our cars look like. So
that's right.
Our cars have little, what do they call them? They're little cosmetics that you can add to the car. This is Rocket League, so it's a game about, it's basically soccer with cars. If you could think about
unbridled fun soccer with cars.
It's soccer with cars. So our cosmetics are a halo and a Vatican flag. And so when we win, you see all of our cars, and Vatican II is a mistake. So I hope one day we play against Bishop Barron. Word on Fire.
Word on Fire versus podcast.
And then he'll enter a chat. Friends.
Right. Friend, why do you keep beating us?
Friend, are you sure you've read the documents? You should buy my Vatican II.
Oh, that's right. The shameless plug for the Vatican II Chronicles, whatever it is.
my Vatican II commentary.
All right, Rudy, tell me some of your favorite video games, you shameless heathen.
All right, I can tell you. Let's see. I think starting with the one that I spent the most time on, which I'll get into in a sec. I would say one of my favorites is Destiny, which is not a good franchise. It's a horrible franchise. Yeah. It's kind of like dating an abusive person. Like,
this isn't helping like our case, dude. This is not helping our case.
Every month, they release a content or something. You're like, wow, it's really going to be good this time, and then it's not. It's like, oh, I'm really gonna stop drinking. I promise.
You want to make this right,
and then it's not good. I like that series because well, we were just talking about westerns. It's kind of like a space western, and I think that's my favorite genre, space western in general. I think it's fascinating. It's like so imaginative, I think, to build those two things together. And I spent a lot of time on that. And also it brings out the worst in me. So I had to put that one away, but I'll always cherish those fond memories of that video game. And I think secondly, there's this really cool Star Wars game called Knights of the Old Republic. Oh my God. Which is like an RPG. It's
it's an oldie but a goodie now.
Character. And it's really cool. You get to make choices within the game and it affects the storyline. So I like that one a lot. That was one that I grew up with and that was really fun. I like to replay it every time. What about you?
Well, now that you mentioned Knights of the Old Republic, I'm going to have to kill you. Just kidding. Actually, I was going to quote Kreia earlier from Knights of the Old Republic too, because she has a line, there's a whole trial in the tunnels and she goes, apathy is death. Because I think you have to like either rush in and like sacrifice your men or like do something evil, and you can choose to be like, I'm not doing that, you know?
Right.
And all the characters, period, it's a mental game, and they're like, apathy is death. Apathy is death, and all this kind of stuff. And
there's a robot in the translation of the robot.
That's right. It's apathy is death.
It's like
I'll have to post that scene.
That's so fun.
But so here's a funny thing too. So talk about moral choices. So we talked about kind of the good, the true, and the beautiful in video gaming. Knights of the Republic is such a great example of proper dichotomy of good and evil. Now, obviously, like outside the fact that it's the Force and that's a little hippy dippy, I know. Generally speaking, because a lot of times Knights of the Republic is a little simplistic, I think, sometimes in its choices. Like either you're like a good guy, like, oh, I'm going to give to somebody and it's going to be good without realizing the consequences, but I'm a goody two shoes. And then the other side is like, if I'm a total jerk, that's the dark side. And that's that's not, sometimes that's good and evil, but that's not actually what good and evil oftentimes mean. Like the greater
Right.
good, mercy, and just like you ought to be oriented towards mercy and also justice.
Mhm.
But there are really clear choices where you realize like I'm going to have to do something that sucks. I'm going to have to do something that's hard, but I'm doing it to help people who are less fortunate than I. So I think you're right when you talk about Star Wars or Destiny being space westerns, because that is a story of space westerns. Again, Magnificent Seven is a story about these gunslingers who are way better than the pay grade they're being offered, deciding to sacrifice it all to go help this little cow town. That's magnanimity. That's nobility. And
Mhm.
it's like the last of knighthood, which is why I think Knights of the Republic is such a fitting name for that series. You play in the first one, you play as a disgraced Sith Lord, essentially. And you have, I don't know, spoiler alert, sorry kids, it's almost 2 decades old at this point. Just buy the game. But you make the choice. You make the choice to either embrace like the dark side again, or you can choose to walk a different path. And you have characters in your midst that will help you along the way to make those decisions more clear. Shout out hashtag Bastila is best. Uh, and then the second one, it's kind of a continuation of that. And so yeah, I think that that's such a great moral drama. So I like Knights of the Republic a lot. I like Red Dead Redemption. I tend to play more historical games because that tends to be my focus. So I love the Total War series, especially kind of the more mid decade games. So I fell in love with Empire. I would spend all of my time in the encyclopedias of Empire and Napoleon and Rome too, just learning like the depth of history there. And I think that if you want to become like a Napoleonic history buff, you can read the books, but also like you play the game, and you go, okay, this is like the tactics in the field. This is actually what the economic systems at the time meant. This is what the reforms meant as I research technologies and that sort of thing. So I think that's absolutely awesome. And then, of course, like we can't forget Rocket League because I think Rocket League has reminded us for me, Rocket League's reminded me of what it was like to video game as a kid.
Yeah,
Remember that feeling, you know?
I do remember that. Speaking of being a kid, we can't forget the Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah. I never had one.
You never had one?
My first console was an Xbox. That's
Oh,
how young
okay.
I am.
I forget that I'm a little bit older than
That's
you.
just yeah.
Um, I remember getting that Nintendo 64 and playing uh, GoldenEye 007
Mm-hmm.
and having that experience of people coming over and having that split screen. It was so cool. It is a very nostalgic feeling. I'm sure that if people who are watching have played video games before and they're of the age, you will understand what that feels like to have people in the same room with you and you're just
Yeah.
like having fun, and it's really cool. Um, yeah, I'll never forget that game
Did you ever play
or that
Star?
game experience.
Did you ever play Star Wars Pod Racing?
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
that
I don't
was
know why they haven't
fun.
remade that game. You know,
Yeah, that was fun.
what is like the quintessential game, good, true, and beautiful? Like, and like if you're in your household, right? Sweet Pea wants to play some Vidya. What are you giving? What are you giving her?
I don't know if she'll play video games. I think we're gonna try and limit screen time altogether.
Yeah,
See how
yeah.
that goes. But in the scenario, if she wanted to play a video game, I would probably give her
If it's not Pokemon Emerald, I'm gonna be mad.
I don't know. I don't know.
You're not gonna give her.
What would you do?
You're not gonna give her Knights of the Old Republic, honestly.
I don't think so.
Oh,
Maybe.
maybe Dark Souls. That's
Dark Souls. You
no,
want to teach
that's
good
well.
patience.
That's funny that you actually mentioned that, like the limiting of screen time, because for everyone, like for all the, I think kind of unjust, overly harsh critiques on video gaming. Like derelict in your duties, you're not a real man. Sort of like extreme sort of thing. It's like okay, well clearly that's not the case, dude. Like like I'm sorry, like you watch football, you love Friday night football, like just can't get enough of watching TV football with your buddies. We play Rocket League. It's not, and the difference is both of us
Right.
have, and congratulations, both of us have memorized useless stats about other things.
Right.
Both of us have had screaming matches over superfluous things. it is impressive athletic wise that people play football, but like we're both not actually playing the actual thing. Uh,
Right.
but if anyone wants to make Rocket League real, I don't think it would complain. Um, that is the criticism, which I think is perfectly fair. I think it's very easy. It's easier for self-evident reasons to slip into hours at a time video gaming, at least for me, as opposed to watching movies upon movies upon movies or something like that. Um,
Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking about it now. It's the sort of argument that people make when they say, I'm going to defend or I'm going to protect my child from all of the external things outside in the world.
mm-hmm.
And what they do is they completely remove the person outside of that dimension,
Yeah.
that they never become acquainted with it. And because of this, they encounter it, and sometimes it's so alluring to them that they completely forget everything that they were told about it,
Mm-hmm.
because they never had the opportunity to temper themselves, to have self-control, or to put the things of the faith into work. Right, they learn about why this is bad, but they never put it into play. They never
Yeah.
get the opportunity to actually form that muscle.
Mm.
And so when it comes to screen time, when it comes to video games, when it comes to any sort of entertainment, whether it be football or dancing or whatever, there's always the opportunity for you to take it way too far, because it's because it's because we're we're kind of wanting to escape,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, that's true. And something I was thinking about is just how one of my friends at work, what he says is this: as far as Catholic, we talked about this with Catholic filmmaking, but what we've done is when we say like we want to protect our children from all the bad stuff, right? So
Yeah. Well,
what we
there's certain things that you should.
well, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would never say like you should just throw your kids out into the wild.
No.
We ought to be Virgil's to our children's Dante's. Virgil is
Mm,
Dante's guide through the Inferno. His
yeah.
response to Dante isn't, "Oh my gosh, like how could
Isn't
you
this
ever want?"
cool?
Yeah, right. It's not. Is it cool? And it's also not. Oh my gosh, you should never like even think about the Inferno, because
Right.
part of memento mori is that we think about the loss of heaven and the punishments of hell. So
Hmm.
you need to understand what you need to avoid, and that doesn't mean you need to indulge in it. Dante doesn't indulge in anything in the Inferno, but he has to understand what he is turning away from.
Yeah.
And so what my friend says is the problem that we have as Catholics is that we think that the absence of bad is automatically making a piece of content or media or something good.
Hmm.
We see this with shows or movies, right? Like what makes a Christian film garbage? It's not the fact that, well, we look at it, it's like fun for the whole family. Oh, that's good because that means it doesn't have drugs and sex and violence and language and stuff. Oh my gosh, it's a good movie. And it's like, but you didn't inject any of the good, the true, and the beautiful. Right.
Right.
And good, by the way, the basis is good. So it answers the infusion of good, not just the absence of evil. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not to say that what good isn't good because it's the absence of evil. The opposite's true. It's like evil's evil because of the absence of good.
Hmm.
And this is true in every single medium. And so there should be a dedication of parents to want to. There are some objectionable things that you shelter your children from, right? Like you
Oh, yeah.
don't. There are with Jen and I, how we watch movies and stuff is there are parts you fast forward through, or there are movies you just entirely avoid, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But there are plenty, especially as far as parents are concerned, great teaching examples you can bring out of things which are not just overtly Catholic in their nature.
Hmm.
My buddy's example is Frozen. He says, and Frozen's kind of a funny little film. But what's funny about Frozen is that Frozen actually has a good example of sacrificial love. And so, as a parent, what a good way to contextualize your children. Like, she sacrificed herself for her sister. And in this way, Christ says there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for your friends. And when it comes to video games, it's like, I don't believe as far as Jen and I's kids, like, yeah, I don't want them to play like mindless shooters and some of the games like I played. Like, I loved Gears of War.
Is
Don't
that what
fight.
you would give your daughter?
Yeah, I mean that's I mean Jen's apparently a good Gears of War player. So if our daughters are playing Gears of War, it's probably more the influence of their mother. But in retrospect, I just think that like the over the top violence of it means it's probably not the best game to play, right?
Right.
Like, not to say that violence should not exist in games. You know, obviously, like Red Dead Redemption has extremely realistic violence features. But I think if you're a naturally oriented good person, like I'm striving to be, like I don't like just mindlessly killing people, and I don't just like bathe in like the blood of things. Red Dead Redemption I like when it's like not giving me a choice just to shoot anybody but the bad guys. So I think context is everything. But yeah, I do think there is this danger of, oh, we need to shelter them from every single thing, and
Hmm.
then they're that weird kid. And by the weird kid, it's like they go haywire by the time they get to the decision making stages, because there's no foundation of why their parents or why their faith gave them the choices that they ought to have been given.
Or to add to that, they just don't know what decision to make because they've never
Yeah.
had the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
All of that to say, I would love one day, it would probably be a disaster because
Hmm.
the older I get, the less dexterity I have. I'm starting to notice that, which is
Yeah.
kind of scary. It's like one of those weird, it's memento mori.
Hmm.
Like you one day you realize you're like, hmm, I don't react as fast as I did 10 years ago.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? So all that to say, if in like, let's see, in 15 years, there's still something like a Destiny
Hmm.
where there's a competitive multiplayer, I would love to play that with my kids. That would be
Yeah.
amazing,
Right.
to discuss strategy, to discuss, like proper movement and like all
Hmm.
this cool stuff that is ingrained in there. Cause it's not just, some of the games are fun, but there is like if you're playing a competitive game, there
Hmm.
are aspects of, strategy and movement and knowing the map and knowing your enemy and all this kind of
Are
stuff.
you worried about this? Because you said that Destiny brings out the worst in you. Are you worried that you're gonna yell at your kids for making a wrong move?
No, I wouldn't yell at my kids. I would be afraid that they would hear me say something bad.
Okay.
And that's actually why I stopped playing that game, is
Mm,
because you have to know yourself. And I know that when I was playing that, I was getting really, really competitive.
yeah.
Like, and it's good to have competitiveness. It's good. It really helps you like in real life. If
Hmm.
you're bidding for a job or something like that, it's good to have that quality, right? But just like anything, it could be distorted. And I just found that like when I was playing certain matches with certain people, like we didn't have that mojo, and there was a lot
Yeah.
of friction and stuff, and that friction was really coming out in just like really stupid ways, like, oh, what is going on, that sort of thing,
And
like
more or less
emotional
language.
outbursts. And it's just kind of, I knew that this was happening. And then Ashley one day, she was like, well, you just get so like upset about that game sometimes. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
I do. And I like started to realize it a little bit more. And I was like, okay, it's time to step back. This isn't healthy for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm just like, if it's really tilting me that hard, I can't play that anymore.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
things like that with like Destiny or like Warzone, I
mhm.
love playing Warzone, but
Yeah.
it's easy to
Me
get
too.
tilted with that sort of thing.
This is something our priest said, and I think it's fair, and that's that. Matt Fradd actually talks about this in a recent episode, but he talks about like St. Thomas Aquinas on leisure and on play, and how our
Hmm.
problem is that our play should not be things that stress us out. And so one of
Yeah.
the problems of video gaming, and I think this is a perfectly fair criticism, is that how is it that our play actually is a thing that is a major stressor at the time? Like the emotional investment in a game that makes you angry, how is that
Yeah.
recreation, you know?
It really isn't. And there's also aspects of gaming that make it feel like a job.
Yeah.
Like you're logging
Yeah.
into your second
Well,
job.
sometimes
And
it very much is.
it's like, this isn't recreation. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
fun. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to keep doing this. But you're absolutely right. Th- these things should be recreation. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be filling in a void of something else,
Mm-hmm.
you
Right.
know.
Right. Which I think is why, like, again, like, I think all things in moderation and context, you know?
Yeah.
Like, again, like, the natural ebb and flow of our lives right now is I love, I wish I could have a whole Saturday where I just sat down and, like, play Total War campaigns like I did when I was a teenager. But my
Yeah,
obligations were different when I was a teenager, right? When I was a child,
exactly.
I thought as a child, I reasoned as a child, and then I became a man and decided to get married. So,
St. Paul moment.
but because you wake up and you're like, I'm like, okay, like I want to spend my Saturday with Jen, or I have to get like things ready. I have to do stuff, or my Sundays, right? Sunday's like a
Oh
leisure
yeah.
day, but it's like I want to do something.
Yeah.
Not to say that we don't play video games. Jen's a beast at Vermintide, you know, on the occasion. But honestly, like most of my time spent in front of my computer, which I originally built for gaming, has turned naturally into editing or something,
Into work.
into
Yeah.
work. But even and
Yeah.
that work, part of that work is play. Like, I mean, this podcast is a perfect example. Like, we do
Hmm.
this because this is something that we're doing in our free time, you know? And yeah, there's obligations tied to it. Shameless plug for the Patreon down below. But the entire point of it is like we're doing something because we felt it was really being compelled by God to do something great. And also it's a perfect way for like we get on here and like our friendship has been elevated, I think, because you know we're not just playing Rocket League all the time, but we're having the same conversations we would face to face after mass or something, just in front of people now.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, there's something interesting to like that idea of leisure and maybe how so much of modern gaming, true, has moved to addictive stressors in order to keep people hooked. Like GoldenEye has no like obviously you can get frustrated with GoldenEye and stuff, but the virtue of how it's expressed is just a different level, I feel, than how
Hmm.
like a lot of like contemporary shooters tend to be. And like
Yeah.
that's why like I don't touch loot boxes. I don't really do a lot of massive multiplayer stuff or squad or community based things quite the same except for Rocket League, which is a cadre of people I know, just because I don't want that stress when I'm just trying to unwind.
Yeah, just so jumping back to something you said, we definitely have different duties now,
Yeah.
right? I was telling you this earlier, but I think this is good advice for any young man who is about to be married. Um, when I moved into this apartment with my beautiful wife, she suggested that we moved into it's a two-bedroom apartment. So she said, I think this particular bedroom would be best for our bedroom. And I said, I don't know. I don't think so. Let's go into the other one instead.
Uh,
So we moved in there, and I'm in the former bedroom. You can't tell because I'm in the void,
hey,
but
the void.
but I spent the good part of today just moving everything out of this bedroom and into the next one because it is a little bit more spacious for
Mm,
our baby who's going to be due in July, hopefully, the later part of July, maybe August. I don't know.
mm,
But yeah, those are situations where it's Saturday. I could have just, spent the day recreating and
mm,
doing whatever. But we do have duties, and that's the important thing to keep in mind with anything really,
yeah.
but particularly with gaming or anything recreational,
Mm-hmm.
is it's good to have fun, but work comes first,
Yeah,
right?
and part of that work turns into fun. I mean, your wife is your vocation.
Yeah,
And so why would and no man ever wants to be derelict in his duties. You know, when we do we fail at what our vocation is. And you know, there's a time and a place for everything under the sun. Obviously, like I read in the pre-canon books that we've had, like it's a very delicate dance of making sure that like your wife doesn't look at Saturdays as just the day to taskmaster you around the house. And, and also that as husbands we don't look at Saturdays as the days to completely unplug or
right.
getting home from work or something is like the time to just completely unplug from duties of the fact of being head of household.
Hmm.
You know, and that means helping our wives and supporting them and all the things that they do and taking pride just as much as she does in building of the home. And I think with that in mind, it's like that's why like when I video game now, it's like I like to invite Jen. Jen's not really much of a gamer. She likes like little kind of like those like task eat up phone games, which I don't really count as real gaming anyway. Uh, she actually is funny. Speaking of like addictives and attemptive addictives at gaming, but Jen deletes an app on her phone when it wants her to spend money.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I reached my time limits and like, oh, buy 10 coins, and she's like, all right, this is
Smart.
gone, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a matter of, I think there's a lot of young men, as we've talked about, who, particularly young men, obviously, women don't tend to be gamers nearly as much as men do. And it's just a whole host of different sort of factors. But generally speaking, there are some guys who fall into video games along with other addictions, but sometimes really genuinely video games, and they don't quite know how to realize their full potential. And so for those guys, I'm completely with any criticisms on video games. Like, you want to get a better life, like, cut the video games, go to the gym, like, work on your prayer life, all those sorts of things. Like, this distraction is actually detrimental to your health, and you can't control it. So yeah, you have a problem. For other guys who are like, oh, it's Saturday, like, I should game for like 2 hours, and if my wife wants this done, I'll do it later, whatever. Like, no, do it, because if she's happy, then all the more reason you have to be like, all right, cool, like, I took care of it, like, we're done, we're good, like, we're having a good time. And also, like, if I slip off this evening, like, play a game of Rockets with the boys, she should be more graceful, gracious. And I was not gonna say let me, because, but she won't be mad about it. Let's say.
So you think maybe you'll play Rockets with the boys on Prima Noctis?
So should I say to our people?
Well, it's to be expected, people. It obviously happened. So we have a baby on the way.
Hey, Lamau.
But Jordan and I and Anthony's our other friend who maybe one day we'll have him on the podcast,
Yeah,
along
soon,
with,
I think.
with our wives too.
Ooh.
I think we owe it to our wives.
I think we
first
owe it. Yeah, yes.
to have them on there. But we have this thread. We've talked about this thread before, and we keep in touch so much. It's it's really funny.
Yeah.
I think it bothers my wife sometimes. She's like, "Who is that?
Right.
Why are they texting you at 12 in the morning?"
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We're awake. We're just thinking about stuff.
Boys.
But on our wedding night, without getting into any details or anything, put two and two together. I texted.
Isn't
the
it
boys
one and
and I
one
said, "Hey,
to make?
so do you
Isn't
get-"
it one and one to make two that makes three?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. Bad biblical joke.
So anyway, I texted the boys that night. Hey, you guys want to play Rocket League? It was a joke, obviously. So now it's become a tradition of
So on our
sorts.
wedding night, for all of us, we have to text a thread and go, hey, y'all want to play Rockets? Jen will take my phone and throw it out into the wilderness where we will be. And the worst part is I won't probably mind.
Yeah, it's your duty at that point to put the phone away.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing too. It's like, again, all things in moderation. Entertainment's a wonderful thing. Video games are another medium. It's a staple. It's a business for some people even. Like, there's viability. But obviously there are some that should be stayed away from. There are certain elements in gaming that I think are bringing out really ugly sides of us. I think honestly, Rudy, I think the entire culture around esports has really changed gaming, and probably for the worse. I've worked a couple of esports gigs shooting and editing and stuff, and just seeing a bunch of young men just like pay a lot of money to fangirl over guys playing video games is weird to me. Seeing entire events. There's a lot of mental health issues, because what happens is they take like kids who are really good at a particular game, like League of Legends or something, 17, 18, 19, sometimes not even from the country they're playing in, and suddenly they're making 6 or 7 figures or whatever it is, but there's pressure and the game stops becoming fun. It becomes a job. And their job consists of sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day gaming, not as a recreational thing, not as I can get up, do whatever I want, but like, and they have coaches and they have times and strategies, and if they're slacking, and numbers and quotas to keep up, and it's a bad business, I think.
Got to keep that KD up,
I think any sports for people that age, and obviously a lot of our professional sports are played with people who can barely drink. It's a time when the frontal lobe's developing and you're not good at all your decision making, which is why a lot of NFL players wind up broke and homeless and all that other kind of things,
Yeah.
because they can't handle it. There's nothing, and there's not enough adult oversight in place to pause. So I do think that sort of side of gaming does need to be heavily checked as a culture. Like the whole like Twitch streaming generation needs a real good hard insight look, because it's a real problems that are surfacing.
Right.
You know,
So let's shift it. Let's shift it in another direction.
hey, let's go.
Let's say, for example, you could visit any place in a video game, and you could take Jen out for a date. Where would you go in any video game?
Do you have one off the top of your head? Because like I'm like flipping through. We would go to Halo. You know that first level where you crash down, that pretty one. That's what we do.
We'd take a ride in a Banshee.
That's right. Warthog.
Warthog. Be the gunner.
That's a really good question actually. I mean, honestly I would love to take Jen out for some Rocket League.
That would be cool.
Like imagine just like at like a speedway, like vertical jumps like that and everything.
That would be wild.
So wild and fun.
That would be wild.
But we'd probably crash and die, so
It doesn't seem like there's anybody inside the car though.
no. You think, oh, maybe they're automated, they're like remote control.
What if there's
cars.
like a dark like backstory to
The
Rocket
hidden
League?
lore of Rocket League?
It's like a slave race.
Uh-huh.
And you're paying to have one slave drive the car, and every match somebody dies, so they like put a new guy in there
Wow.
to drive your car.
Wow,
What if
lovely.
that's like the lore, the hidden
Yeah.
lore?
Yeah, lovely, Rudy. Happy. We're not playing Rocket League ever again. Where would you
I think if I could take Ashley on a date somewhere in a video game, it would probably be, I don't know, to some castle in Kingdom Come Deliverance in
Yeah.
Prague.
Oh,
That would be
Kingdom
sick.
Come Deliverance? No. You need, the problem is that's a historically realistic game. So, you guys got to use the restrooms
Something
and like
fantasy.
get something from the vending machine. I'm saying like you do something like Elder Scrolls, right?
Maybe like I don't know, what kind of video game would be fun.
Nothing in the Warhammer universe, which I play because everything wants to kill you in that universe.
Right. I was gonna say maybe Diablo. No.
Final Fantasy maybe, or Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts. Yeah.
You ever play Kingdom Hearts? You look like you played Kingdom Hearts, you nerd.
I did. Yeah, I played that in middle school. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mostly
middle-
just to fit in. I didn't really enjoy it that much.
By the way, I wanted to before we as we wrap up, I wanted to compliment you on your fresh cut too. You complimented mine early on.
Oh, thank
But
you.
I see yours. That's pretty slick.
Yeah, I got a fade. I got faded, bro.
Yo, we got faded. Let's
So
go.
faded, bro.
I wish y'all could see the back of
Crossfaded.
this. It's a faux hawk, so it's going like this.
It looks good.
It's kind of new. I don't really do this kind of style a lot of times, but I think it's gonna be my wedding cut. I'm just gonna like make sure the hair kind of grows a little bit more as a straightaway on the back.
You look like a young Denzel Washington.
Jen and I just watched Glory the other day, so don't at me.
I haven't seen that.
That's another one for another time.
Which coincidentally is who, if we were to make a movie of our life,
Mm-hmm. Oh yes,
I
this
would
is a good one.
cast Denzel Washington as your character.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
can my old character be Morgan Freeman?
That would be sick.
Is it bad that
Yeah.
I would cast? Oh my gosh, how did I forget his name? I shot him for heaven's sake in Calico Queens. Who's the guy Machete kills? Who's he? Danny Trejo.
Oh, Danny Trejo.
Yeah, your old man is Danny Trejo.
Oh no.
Anthony's Vato voice.
Damn fool.
That that fool. Oh. Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you liked what we had to say, and we know that you did, please go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can be updated on every time we drop a video, which we do because we have a lot of different content going on in the channel. If you'd like to support us even further, down below you'll see our link to our Patreon. There are a lot of juicy perks and tiers. This includes early access to episodes, a secret Patreon's only episode, which you are watching right now. Congratulations, you made it, kid. As well as the ability to pick topics and a bunch of other goodies. So if you like to support us a little further, your prayers are the most important thing. And then click the Patreon link and see if you find a tier that suits you.
Thanks for watching, guys. Yeah, if you can, comment below what your favorite video game is. Or if you were to take somebody on a date, any
Preferably
video
really.
game. I know we didn't really give you an answer, but maybe you guys could give us an interesting
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
So looking forward to seeing those, and thanks for watching.
God bless you. May I keep you. Adios.